All right, so this is a rudimentary cutaway of the skin sections. And we've got our skin, we've got our epidermis, we've got our dermal layer, we've got our subcutaneous, and then we've got our muscles. We are working in the dermal layer. Okay. We're down at the lower part of the dermal layer because we want to lift that skin. We don't want to be anywhere near the muscle. We're not going to be really in the fat either because fat, the barbs won't catch in. We want to be, and sometimes we go right. And the way that we're going to learn today, we're going through the SMAS and we're going to manipulate this fat to move it around because it's a suture and I can mold it. When you start doing this procedure, in the beginning, we give you a ROI sheet. We tell you the procedure. We give you a list of the basic materials that we use in that procedure, what it costs you, and what the average national average fluctuation is for that procedure. So you can kind of set up your costs. This is a talent. So the better you get, the higher margins you're going to get because you're charging by outcome, not by material. All right. So we see the hair follicle here, and this is our dermal layer. Now you see that our vessels, we have very few vessels in the dermal layer. They're deeper down into the skin, and your big vessels are closer to the muscle. So we are not working in this area where you're going to be having at risk of hitting an artery. Okay, we're in the dermal layer. The dermal layer doesn't have any nerve endings in it. So one of the things that you see a lot on YouTube is you'll see injectors put a syringe of lidocaine on the end of their cannula and they'll shoot the lidocaine in as they're sliding the cannula in. I don't ever do that, and I recommend that all of my students don't do that for two reasons. If you're super careful and you get just a teeny weeny bit of lidocaine here and there, it deadens the pain and it doesn't flood the channel. But if you put too much liquid in that channel, your thread's going to float. It is not going to catch. Okay. The biggest reason I don't is because if you're in the dermal plane, the client really doesn't feel anything but pressure as that cannula is sliding down to where you're going to anchor it. If they get to a place where they're coming out of the chair, you know that you've either went too shallow or too deep and you're starting to get in out of your plane area. If that area is numb, you don't know that. So as you come down, we're going to be watching that cannula track under the skin. So we're going to know where we're at all the time. But sometimes, it may get a little deeper because it's all about how you hold the hook. And if it's numb, you won't know that. Now, if you go too deep, you can cause a hematoma, which is nobody wants that. I mean, it's going to heal up, but the client's going to look like somebody popped her for a couple of weeks. Or if you go too deep and you don't cause a hematoma, but you just get too deep, you don't get the correction because we're lifting the skin. And if we go down deeper than a dermal layer, then the barbs may not catch on the fat. They're just too deep to stimulate the lift in the upper region of the face. So that costs you money because if the client comes back in 3 months and she didn't have the correction that she needed, you're going to have to do the procedure again. And if you're reputable, you're not going to charge her. So that's two reasons you don't do it that way. Now, we can use threads for everything. So we've got threads we're using in the scalp now to stimulate hair growth. Talked about a little bit about hair growth yesterday. If that's something you want to get involved with, I highly recommend that you seek out someone who that's their specialty and you train because it's a science all in its own. But if you're doing a little bit of this in your practice, it's not your main thing. Threads in the scalp is a very good way with the PRP to help stimulate hair growth. We're using them in the vaginal wall to create moisture and create fixed elasticity in the vaginal wall. We use them in breasts to lift the skin of the breast. Seeing a lot of people doing them in the butt. So we've got a lifting that you see a lot of YouTubes on that, lifting that skin. And almost everyone in this room is doing weight loss in their clinic. They're doing the semaglutide. Semaglutide is going to reduce muscle mass and fat in your client, and they're going to have sagging skin. You're in the perfect place that when that skin starts sagging, you can go ahead and address that for your client so they don't wake up one day and go, oh, I look like a hound dog, because that is going to happen if the product is working for them. We can use it, like I said, in combination with other modalities. There's no minimums in threads or in our threads, but I will assure you that once you start doing it, you won't be able to keep them because you're going to be using them all the time. I'm behind the chair, as I told you yesterday, 3 days a week, 2 weeks out of the month, and my book is all the time. And I use threads, PBF, and PRP, and that's about all I do. I do some filler and lips because I got a big following for lips, but other than that, the rest of the areas, I try not to do filler. Right. Because it's a big expense for me. Number one, it's a big expense for the client, and there's big minimums with filler companies. And then if you don't use it, you lose it. The expiration date's not that long. Now, this is our fat pad. This is very important because where we can save the fat and move the fat, that's what we want to do. So not only are we lifting skin, but in the zygomatic region, we have the middle fat pad, the nasolabial fat pad, and the medial fat pad. This medial fat pad is typically the one that slides way down in here, goes right between the other two and ends up down here. So the facial muscular structure, we talked about neurotoxins. Any place that we're going to have a ton of muscle movement, we're going to do our neurotoxin 2 weeks ahead to keep that muscle from fighting our threads because we're lifting skin. So that muscle is moving the skin. So if I can calm it, I can keep my threads in place longer. They get a longer life from the procedure. And forehead is the most common. And down here in the is another place that's very common because this little muscle is pulling the lip down here. So if I do a little neurotoxin right here, it's going to relax that muscle so the lip will be in its correct position and not pull down. It's very important that you know your anatomy, though, because we are working over the top of these areas. So you want to know where your major veins and arteries are so that you can be careful while you're going in that area, not to go too deep because you could get a hematoma. Very rare because we're not in that plane. So anatomy is very important to know. And I think it's more so with the nerves because, again, we're not working in the area where we're going to be working on a nerve or damaging nerves. Okay. But when we go through that area, we just tell the client, take a breath, you go right over it, and it's fine. If you don't know your anatomy, though, and you get to this area, and right here is a common area for me to do bark threads, and I get to this little area and going by that little nerve, she goes, ouch. She goes, oh, like, little thing now, I got an ouch. You're like, okay, I'm just going by this nerve. Take a deep breath, we're going to go by it, and that's it. It's just like a zinger usually. Then you know what's going on. But if you don't, you can be like, oh, what did I do? Did I hurt her? Did something happen? If you don't know the anatomy of where you are and what's underneath there, you don't know why it hurt there and not somewhere else. So that's why it's important to know your anatomy because that just takes anxiety out of it for you.